7 retrograde planets at the same time, September 5th, 2023. So, a retrograde planet causes internal reflection simply because what's happening astronomically is the planet is moving much slower than it appears from our viewpoint. When planets are moving direct, what those things represent and the sign that they're located in indicate a forward motion of those activities, right? So the first house represents the physical body. So if you have Mars in the first house as a transit, for example, right? Mars moving through your first house, you might start an exercise routine, for example, right? So you can see how a planet in a house or sign gets that action moving. Well, if we have 7 planets retrograde, that means the movements and the activities of what those 7 planets represent in the signs that they are in are slowing down. And what that means for us in our experience is a moment to reflect on what those planets in those signs have been doing. Maybe we need to do a little course correction. Maybe we've done a lot and we just want to pause and think and sit with what we've experienced before we move on. So that's retrogrades. And let's talk a little bit about the signs that they're in, because I have concerns and there's some things to warn you about, and there's also some positive things that are quite interesting that'll have all sorts of impacts for our future, such as what's going to be happening with AI, such as people coming together to handle certain natural disasters potentially that I'll talk about. And a lot of this has to do with Uranus and Jupiter being in Taurus. So these 2 planets, Uranus being eccentric, rebellious, it causes all kinds of disruptions, and Jupiter being the planet of expansion together in the same sign indicate some sort of recycling, because Taurus is about physical things, the land itself, and the things that we use to nourish. So it's material. It's not air-based, it's not water, it's not fire, it's about hard things, right? And because Uranus brings chaos and Taurus represents the land, we could see, quite obviously, tornadoes, right? It is tornado season in the States, and so we'll probably see some of those in a place like, well, not in Colorado, but throughout the Midwest and through other parts of the world as well. Now, there's a sextile to Neptune, which rules oceans and water and oil, right? So interesting things with the oil price might be happening. I'll talk about that in my newsletter. But oceans and water, this is also a time of the year where hurricanes occur, right? So some sort of natural disaster is quite likely, whether it's tornado-based on the land or with the waters itself, right? But there's a sextile here, so we need to see how the people and governments will respond. It's most likely going to be positive. And because Uranus also represents innovative, weird, new, disruptive technologies that come in, this disaster could be the impetus for introducing robots, right? The last video I put out, which was a while ago because I was injured, but it had to do with nuclear events. It's possible that something like that gets triggered to where we can't access or even go to that area. It's just not safe for humans, right? Or land-based, hurricane-based, something water-based. Either way, I think we will see an introduction of robots going into places where humans can't go, or an introduction of AI to solve these solutions. Now, the 5th, the moon is exalted. The moon represents the people in mundane astrology. So the people will rise, the people will step up. And I think we will see a spiritual revolution of sorts because, again, we all internally we will be reflecting on 7 different phases of life and how things have been progressing. This is a huge pause and reflection period for the entire world. So we might see a little bit of spiritual growth, conversations, and activity. This chart actually reminds me of, when I was young, I still feel young, but whatever. When I was a kid, right, in the 90s, I remember this Michael Jackson song that was this big deal that my mom used to love, Heal the World, where there's all these artists, Lionel Richie and, all the ladies, and they all came together, and it was about something positive, and I don't even know, I don't remember what they're responding to. I hope we do more than just a song, but I can see some sort of coming together to solve whatever is happening, right? Now, we won't know all the details, because I see a Mercury and Pluto trine here. Hopefully this trine, because trines are positive aspects, actually help us deal with the toxic or shocking or death-related types of involvement in what might be occurring around the 5th with this being triggered. But Mercury and Pluto can indicate, because of the sign aspect here, that maybe there's things between corporations or governments related to certain disasters or issues that they don't want to talk about, right? But during this retrograde period, when Jupiter moves forward, and as we reflect on these things, there's only so much that can be hidden and bottled up. Now, the other thing about Neptune is that it also indicates viruses. And because we're talking about 7 retrograde planets, maybe a certain type of virus might come back. I'm not calling out anyone in particular or any type of virus in particular, but retrogrades indicate a revision of certain ideas and experiences. Okay, but the main idea, what we're seeing here, Uranus and Jupiter and Taurus, this talks about land and nature, mammals, big animals, and we're talking about the ocean, Saturn and Pisces retrograde, right? Neptune, right? So we're talking Neptune in a sextile. So we could see beached whales, we've already seen an issue with a submarine. Hopefully we could rule that out. But Saturn in Pisces, which I've talked about, does indicate death at sea or related to the waters. So I think the most obvious indication here is it is hurricane season. I've already heard about people in Florida potentially having to worry about that, or there might be one coming. I don't know. You guys know I'm in the mountains. I'm doing my Zen shit. I'm a little checked out and helping out people here. But just wanted to pass that along to you guys. What else do I have here? So this retrograde, though, they are forming a trine aspect to Pluto and Capricorn. So that does tell us that governments or corporations will be empowered to act, and that is why we'll see a lot of the introduction of these new tools, right? Because those are the things that Uranus represents. It will force that or allow an opening for innovation to come through, right? Now, personal growth comes through with trines to Pluto. So whatever takes place will be growing, and there will be an advancement of consciousness as a result of how we deal with this. So the thing we need to watch out for as well is Saturn in Pisces retrograde, Neptune, and they are in opposition to Mercury in Virgo, right? So Neptune is dreamy, it's imaginative, and it also rules the oceans and waters, as we know. But this being in opposition to Mercury in retrograde in Virgo, right? Virgo is a hermit. Virgo wants to get down to the details and actually be of service, right? So we can see that there might, and it also rules speech and what is written. That's Virgo. So I wouldn't be surprised, again, with, there's a trine with Mercury and Pluto here, but that could just be benefiting those in power and allowing them to keep some secrets here about what's really going on, right? In other words, censorship, most likely. Because Neptune rules things like drugs as well, there could be delays or issues with getting certain needed medications to people. Or we could see more of criminal activity in government being exposed or censored or something like that. Now, during this retrograde period, a lot of what we talk about on my channel is finances. I've also mentioned that digital euros and digital currencies are on the way. It's likely we'll see those during this larger retrograde period as well. Be well, stay safe, take care, one love, peace.